Yeah, it's time. Let's talk about Star Wars. Star Wars. So Star Wars came out in 1977, and yes, I'm calling it Star Wars and not Star Wars A New Hope, because even though the title A New Hope isn't pointless, I'm just going to be referring to it as it came out in 1977. That's the version I'm reviewing, not the special editions, not the Disney-fied versions, just Star Wars. The original. And Star Wars, for all two of you who don't know what Star Wars is, it's a coming-of-age story taken right out of Joseph Campbell. It's the classic hero's journey. It's a space opera that's an homage to the classic Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon serials of time gone by. But it's also a western, and at times it's a samurai movie. So if any combination of those elements interest you, you might want to check out Star Wars. Oh, and it also fundamentally changed the way movies were made, and most importantly, how movies were merchandised after 1977, when the first movie came out. But besides all that, you can't talk about the history of Star Wars without talking about the man, the myth, the legend, George Lucas. This is George Lucas's movie. He came up with all the ideas, he wrote the script, he directed the movie. This was his passion project, and Star Wars, above all else, is the story of George Lucas. It's his vision on display that we see. George Lucas wrote this massive screenplay that was way too unwieldy for any one movie, so he took the first third of it and made it Star Wars, and he saved the other 2/3 for Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, for later. So before this movie even went into production, it already had a lot riding on it. It not only had to tell that story well, but it also had to serve as a proof of concept for what this universe looks like, because outside of George Lucas's imagination and some Ralph McQuarrie artwork, nobody really knew what Star Wars would look like or feel like, or really what these characters are. So the first Star Wars had to introduce all of that and more or less hold your hand along the way so you wouldn't get lost. But not only that, it also had to be financially successful enough, it had to resonate with enough people, get enough of a groundswell going to warrant its sequel, so George Lucas could tell his whole story. I gotta tell you, that's a lot of pressure that George Lucas put himself under, and it's a miracle that Star Wars works as well as it does. So let's talk about why. So Star Wars opens up a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and boom, you're immediately in space, the Star Wars text is on the screen, and it's giving you a little bit of backstory. It tells you that there's an empire, there's some rebels that just won their first victory, and that they've got these plans that might be able to destroy the Empire's ultimate weapon, the Death Star, a planet killer. And while this opening text is a lot of exposition, it is also very familiar to those of you who know Buck Rogers or Flash Gordon. They would do similar things with the serials. It would more or less catch you up, okay, what happened last time? Where are we? We're good to go. And as soon as that yellow text drifts off into space, we're immediately thrown into the action as this tiny ship just gets engulfed by this massive Star Destroyer. In all the years that Star Wars has been around and other Star Wars media has existed, I've never seen a Star Destroyer look so threatening and imposing and dangerous than in that opening shot. And then you see what's inside, and you see rebels running around. They're all lined up in the hallway with their guns pointed toward the door, sweat dripping down their face, terror in their eyes, waiting for whatever's coming to come through. And sure enough, stormtroopers come through, but most importantly, Darth Vader comes through. And full credit to Rogue One to make this opening sequence somehow even more intense than it was here. And here it's still a pretty intense opening. Everybody's on edge, the explosion in the door, everybody's shooting, everybody dies. Darth Vader doesn't even really do anything when you first see him. He just walks in through the smoke looking threatening, looking at the dead bodies, and he just moves along. The only guy he actually kills is this one captain that he chokes out after he's interrogating him and just throws him to the side like he's trash. But really, you don't see a lot of Vader action in this opening, which works to the movie's advantage because he's more of a mystery. You don't really know what's up with him. You know that he's obviously the bad guy, he's in charge, he's over the other stormtroopers, and you're not quite sure what he's about. But don't worry, you'll find out soon enough. But what's surprising about this first Star Wars movie is we don't really follow any of the main characters on the ship. We don't really follow the captain, we don't really follow Darth Vader, we don't even really follow Princess Leia and what she's doing on the ship as it's being invaded. You see them in passing, but really this opening focuses on the droids. R2 and 3PO, who on the surface are fairly minor characters, but they are our eyes into this world. We see it through the eyes of the droids, and that is brilliant storytelling because the droids are more or less clueless, at least 3PO is, and he reacts to the chaos going around us the way we're reacting because we don't really know what's going on either. But anyway, he sees R2 getting secret plans from Princess Leia, and then they hide in an escape pod and they escape down to the planet Tatooine, where they're kind of wandering through the desert for admittedly a pretty long time. But before long, the movie gets a little strange because both droids get picked up by Jawas, who are like these junk traders, and they wake up in the sandcrawler surrounded by weird looking droids that we've never seen before. Some look kind of human, some look like trash cans with legs, and others just look like I don't know what. But before the audience gets too lost or too confused, we're immediately brought back to the familiar when we see this cute little farm in the middle of the desert, and we see Luke Skywalker and Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru, and they seem to be a normal family in this unusual situation. You know, they banter back and forth, kind of like how regular families do. Luke's a whiny teenager, and he doesn't really want to do responsibility. He just wants to play with his friends and go out. And the droids get sold to this family. So again, through the droids, we're introduced to more and more of the universe. And from here on out, our main character is Luke. Now, it took about 17 minutes to get to him, but this is Luke's story. He's our protagonist. He's the one that gets the call to action to go on his adventure. And it is the message that Leia planted in R2-D2 that he discovers that incites that. Leia had put the Death Star plans inside of R2-D2 to find Obi-Wan Kenobi so that he could take the droid with the Death Star plans to Alderaan so that they could find out a way to defeat this Death Star. And Luke hears this, and while he doesn't know anyone named Obi-Wan, he knows old Ben who lives out beyond the Dune Sea. And so in the middle of the night, R2 runs off looking for him, and in the morning, Luke and C-3PO go out to find him. They get ambushed by some Tusken Raiders until the movie gets very familiar when we find out that Obi-Wan and old Ben are the same person. And Obi-Wan's this wizard. He used to be a Jedi Knight and fought in the Clone Wars alongside Anakin Skywalker, Luke's dad, you know, before Darth Vader killed him. And it's while Obi-Wan's explaining this to Luke and they're talking about, oh, what to do with this message, how to get the droids to Alderaan, what's the best way, Obi-Wan pulls out Luke's father's lightsaber, as if this is his birthright, like it's Excalibur or something. And Luke activates it, and yeah, it's not green, it's blue. It still is really cool, and this may be the single greatest contribution Star Wars has made to pop culture because, dang it, lightsabers are so cool. It's a sword that can cut through anything, and it's super lightweight. You can do really cool lightsaber tricks with it. And it's just awesome. But after Luke's had his fun playing with the lightsaber, he puts it away and he's like, I don't know if I should really go with you. You know, I got responsibilities back home. That is until Imperial stormtroopers land on the planet looking for those droids, and they slaughter Luke's family. And I have my own theory as to who exactly slaughtered Luke's family. It's implied that it's stormtroopers, and stormtroopers may be the most logical explanation. But in my head canon, it's Boba Fett. Boba Fett is on Mos Eisley. He frequents Mos Eisley. He works with the Empire a lot. And I would be surprised Darth Vader kind of under the table paid Boba Fett on the side to look for these droids, get these plans, and that he's the one that killed all the Jawas because, again, Boba Fett much more accurate than Sand People and more accurate than stormtroopers who can't seem to hit the broadside of a barn most of the time. But what really convinces me of this theory is the fact that Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen are burnt to a crisp. They are just skeletons, and the homestead is smoking, it's on fire, and really we don't see stormtroopers using flamethrowers too often, especially not these model stormtroopers. But Boba Fett does. Boba Fett's got a flamethrower, and he's got that missile backpack. He could blow stuff up no problem. So yeah, while it may be a little far-fetched, and maybe I'm the only one convinced of it, that's my headcanon. But this tragic turn of events is what pushes Luke to go on this adventure with Obi-Wan. They're going to go to Mos Eisley. They're going to get some transportation to leave and go to Alderaan. So who do they find in this bar if not Han Solo? And Han Solo is just the best character in this movie. Han Solo is what makes Star Wars because he is the rugged pirate, smuggler, cowboy. You know, all the tropes of a good rogue mercenary thrown into a pot. Plus a little altruism, a little heart of gold in there too. You get Han Solo. And Han Solo is introduced in a pretty spectacular way that is just butchered by every version of this movie that's been released since. And it's when he shoots Greedo under the table. Yeah, Han shot first. I know that A lot of people are over the whole Han shot first, Greedo shot first thing. Most people are just kind of resigned to it at this point, but I still testify that having Greedo shoot first does Han's character arc such a disservice in this movie. Because in order for his redemption at the end of the movie to be worth anything, you have to believe that at the start, Han Solo is the kind of guy, the kind of scoundrel that would shoot Greedo under the table if Greedo's pointing a gun in his face. And while I'm talking about the changes that were made in this movie, honestly, a lot of them I can roll with. They're fine enough. He did improve some of the special effects. He improved the audio and visual quality of the movie. But it's stuff like Greedo and the Jabba the Hutt scene that is just completely unnecessary. In fact, you see Greedo walking around in that scene anyway. So that's a big continuity issue. And really, I believe that Jabba scene was cut for multiple reasons. For one, it was filmed with a real guy and not the slug that we know Jabba the Hutt to be. But I also think it just renders the Greedo scene redundant because even some of the dialogue is word for word the same. It's just so redundant. Even I get bored sometimes. You think I had a choice? Or if you were paying attention during the Greedo scene, you already know that Han got bored, that he had to drop his spice, and that the Imperials kind of scared him away and he owes Jabba money. You already know all that. So why do we need this really cringy scene with a poorly rendered Jabba the Hutt? I don't know. But after a little bit of excitement and a hurried escape, the crew is off Mos Eisley, they're into space, and they're going to the Alderaan system. And it's here we should probably talk about what's going on with the Empire and Princess Leia. Well, Princess Leia is still alive, she's a captive, and they're trying to get information out of her, but she won't budge. So Tarkin, who is actually the one in charge in this movie, it's not Darth Vader. Darth Vader is impressive, and he is a force to be reckoned with. He'll choke you with his mind if you talk back to him. But really, it's Tarkin that you should be afraid of, because Tarkin is willing to exterminate an entire planet with this Death Star just to prove a point. And that's exactly what he does. He brings Leia out of her cage and points the Death Star's gun at the Alderaan system, her home planet, and he threatens to blow it up if Leia doesn't give him the location of the rebel base. And she does give him a name. She says Dantooine. They're on Dantooine, but Tarkin blows it up anyway, so it really doesn't matter what she said. Alderaan was toast regardless. And that is why Tarkin is one of the most underrated Star Wars villains ever. He is ruthless. And I was so glad that they brought him back for Rogue One, even though CGI was kind of spotty at times. So now that Alderaan's destroyed, our heroes come out of hyperspace and they're immediately in this meteor shower of what used to be Alderaan. And before they really know what's going on, they're being shot at by this short-range TIE fighter, so they follow it and they get eaten up by the Death Star, which just looks like a big gray Mike Wazowski head. So they get eaten up by that thing, the tractor beam pulls them in, and now they have to kind of run around the Death Star in disguise as stormtroopers and rescue the princess. The classic hero journey, archetypal adventure. Yeah, Star Wars has it. So now they got to go find the princess, and they shoot their way in, rescue the princess. Obi-Wan deactivates the tractor beam, but then he comes face to face with Darth Vader, and we get the duel, and they clash swords, and it's a little underwhelming, I'm gonna be honest. This fight hasn't aged the best, especially compared with some of the other more grand and sweeping sword fights that we've gotten in Star Wars. This is just kind of two older guys smacking some swords around. And while there is some decent choreography, and if you know about kendo and like Japanese katana swordplay, it is more or less what you would expect, but, compared to what's been going on in the prequels, or even just what we see in Empire Strikes Back, this scene is not the best. And if you want to see a better version of the scene, there's a video of it on YouTube. Somebody took VFX and really made it seem more epic than it actually was. It just looks really cool, but that's not really in the movie. In the movie, you see is just two old guys smacking swords around. But it serves its job well, and Obi-Wan does what any good mentor in this type of movie would do, and he dies. Yes, he sacrifices his life and becomes more powerful than Vader can possibly imagine. But Vader doesn't really understand those words, so he just chops him down, and Obi-Wan disappears. He becomes a pile of clothes. He vanished. Then Luke hears Obi-Wan in his head and he says, "Run, Luke," and they go. They get on the Millennium Falcon and they take off, and now they need to really get those plans to the rebels, and the rebels are hiding out on Yavin 4. And after a little exposition scene of how they're exactly going to attack the Death Star, we get the climax of this movie. And as far as climaxes go for Star Wars movies, this is not the most complex. This is a straight up trench run assault where they go in the trench and they have to find the exhaust port, and at just the right moment they're going to launch the proton torpedoes and the thing will just explode. The only problem is the Death Star knows exactly where the rebels are now because they were tracking the Millennium Falcon. So if the rebels don't attack like now, all the rebels are going to die on this planet, which is a great way to add more stakes to this already high stakes situation. You know, they need to blow up the Death Star before the Death Star can just start blowing up any planet that opposes it. You know, that will change the course of this civil war that's going on. But they also need to do that while there's this ticking clock of the Death Star coming into range of Yavin 4 to blow it up. So now we get the trench run. And Luke is there. He volunteers to join the fighter attack, and so he's in his cockpit with all these other fighter pilots. And one in particular is Biggs. Now this is a change to the special editions that I actually really like. I think it really does add something positive to this story. And it's that before they all get into their ships, Luke has this small scene with Biggs. Apparently is from Tatooine, and him and Luke knew each other and they were friends, but then Biggs went off to the academy and they haven't really seen each other in a while. So it's a great reunion, and now they're on the same side taking down the Empire, and Biggs vouches for Luke's ability, and they're like, okay, I'm going to see you on the other side, and they go up. And that scene was cut from the theatrical version. Why? I have no idea. It's a good scene, and it adds more weight when Biggs dies in the trenches, and Luke looks really dejected. He's like, oh man, I lost a friend here, and it really hits Luke hard. And if you don't have that scene, you don't really know who Biggs is. You know, you don't know that connection. So I'm really glad that despite all of Lucas's other mistakes, he at least put that scene back in. That was a good call. But now that the fight is on to blow up the Death Star, Vader and a couple of pilots go out and they start picking off these fighters one by one, which again proves that Vader not as high up on the Imperial food chain as you really think he should be, because he actually goes down in his cockpit and does stuff. He takes care of business, and he does. Vader is a force to be reckoned with in this trench. He'll come back and he'll pick off a few more and he'll kind of break off, he'll disappear, you don't really know where he went, and then he'll come back and pick off a few more, and he successfully whittles down one by one the number of pilots that can actually get the job done all by himself. That is, except for two. He shoots Wedge, and Wedge kind of breaks off. Luke says, take care of yourself, I got this. So Wedge leaves, and because of that, he survives, and we see him in the next movie. But Luke is still down there, and he's getting really close to blowing up this Death Star, and he's trying to feel the Force. He turns off his targeting computer because Obi-Wan's voice told him to use the Force, don't trust the computer, because we've already seen the computer fail another pilot earlier, you know. He blasted it, but it missed, even though the computer told him to, so Luke's like, screw that, I'm just gonna go by the Force, I'm gonna feel it. And he's evading, and Vader's like, ooh, the Force is strong with this one. But eventually Luke locks in a pattern, and Vader locks in on Luke, and out of nowhere, boom, Vader's wingman blows up. And Vader's like, what? And then the other wingman just starts freaking out and veers into the side of the canyon, spinning Vader out into who knows where. And it's Han Solo back for his redemption at the end. Yeah, after they all landed on Yavin 4, Han Solo took his reward that he was promised by Luke and Obi-Wan and Leia. You know, they kept adding money so that Han would kind of come along and do these things with him. And Han pieced out. He's like, I gotta pay off Jabba the Hutt or I'm a dead man. I already had one bounty hunter going for me. I don't need more. Yeah, you haven't seen Jabba the Hutt because you did the smart thing. You watched the originals. You didn't watch the special edition. But I know who he is, and he is business, so I gotta go. And at that point, while you are, like Luke, disappointed to see him go, you understand where he's coming from. He's not in it for the fight and the glory and the rebellion. He just wants to make his living. But now Han is back, and he effectively got rid of Vader, and he's like, okay, kid, let's blow this thing and go home. And Luke blows it. Well, blows it in the most positive sense of the word, I guess. And they get the heck out of there, and the Death Star just boom, and it blows up, and everybody's happy, and they have the nice medal ceremony at the end. But Chewie doesn't get a medal because I don't really know why. Maybe it's because he was the co-pilot, he wasn't the pilot. He should get a little something to pin to his sash or something, some kind of recognition. And that's Star Wars, and as of 1977, that is all anybody ever knew about Star Wars. It's crazy to think about that now, but this was it for a while. Until 1980 with Empire, this was it. This was Star Wars, take it or leave it. And a lot of people took it. And I can see why. It's a fun, engaging space opera romp. It's a classic hero's journey, you know, rescue the princess, blow up the super weapon, fight off the dark and sinister sorcerer, and unlocking your hidden potential with this magic that you had in you all along. It's a tale as old as time, and it took a visionary like George Lucas to bring it to screen. And I can't credit this man enough for telling this classic story while at the same time setting it in this world that's all his own, that nobody's ever seen before, or at least never seen in this way. And despite all the stupid things he's done, like what he did with the special editions and some of his choices with the prequels, I can't take this away from him. This is an achievement. This is a director's unfiltered vision on display, and that's something that we seldom see today. But now I turn over to you guys. What do you think about Star Wars? Wow, that is a loaded question. Well, let me put it this way. What is your favorite era of Star Wars? Are you a fan of the original trilogy? Are you a fan of the prequels? Are you a fan of the sequel trilogy? Whatever you think is your favorite encapsulation of Star Wars, put it in the comments below. I'm curious to see. And if you like this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe for more content, and hit the notification bell to be notified every time I upload a video. And as always, I'm Colby. This is my nerdy talk, and I'll see you in the next video.